The ship landed softly on the golden stone platform, and Daniel Cole felt his heart beating fast. He had dreamed of this moment for years. The planet Virathus spread out before him like something from an ancient painting. Tall mountains touched the purple sky. Rivers of silver water flowed through valleys filled with strange, beautiful plants. And everywhere he looked, there were dragons, not the monsters from old Earth stories. These were the Draconari intelligent, ancient beings who had ruled this world for thousands of years before humans ever looked up at the stars. They stood on two legs like humans, but towered over them at nearly 4 meters tall. Their scales shimmered in colors of deep red, forest green, and midnight blue. Great wings folded against their backs, and when they spoke, smoke curled from their nostrils. Daniel was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life. He had spent 10 years learning about the Draconari from books and recordings. Now he was finally here, standing on their sacred world as part of a human diplomatic mission. Captain Lavra Bennett walked down the ship's ramp first. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came the rest of the team, 12 humans in total, all chosen carefully for this historic visit. "Remember," Captain Bennett said quietly, "we are guests here. We follow their rules. We respect their customs. No exceptions." Daniel nodded along with the others, but his eyes were already scanning the landscape, taking in every detail. A group of Draconari approached them, moving with slow, powerful grace. The leader was enormous, even by Draconari standards. His scales were deep purple, almost black, and his eyes burned like orange flames. "I am Ambassador Kirith," the great dragon said. His voice was deep and rumbled like distant thunder. "You are welcome on Virathos, humans. We hope this meeting will bring understanding between our peoples." Captain Bennett stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "We are honored by your invitation, Ambassador. We come in peace and friendship." The formal greetings continued, but Daniel found his attention wandering. Another Draconari had moved to stand near the human group. This one was smaller than Kirith, with scales of deep green. He watched the humans with obvious distrust. "I am Vexan," he said when Daniel met his gaze. "I will be your guardian during your stay. Where you go, I go. What you see, I see. This is our way." Daniel smiled politely. "I understand. Thank you for watching over us." Vexan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I do not watch over you, human. I watch you. There is a difference." Over the next 3 days, the human delegation was shown many wonders. They visited the great libraries where Draconari history was carved into walls of crystal. They watched young dragons learning to fly over bottomless canyons. They attended feasts where food was cooked by dragon fire at the table. But it was on the 4th day that everything changed. Ambassador Kirith led them toward a massive structure built into the side of a mountain. It was made of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Guards stood at every entrance, their eyes sharp and watchful. "This is the nesting sanctuary," Kirith explained. "Here, our eggs are kept safe and warm until they hatch. Here, our young take their first breaths. It is the most sacred place on all of Virathos." Captain Bennett looked uncertain. "Are you sure it is appropriate for us to enter?" "You will see only the outer chambers," Kirith replied. "The inner sanctuary is forbidden to all but our caretakers. But we wish you to understand how precious our young are to us. Perhaps then you will understand us better." They entered the sanctuary, and Daniel felt the temperature rise immediately. The air was thick and warm, like a summer day back on Earth. The walls were lined with soft materials, and gentle light came from glowing crystals set into the ceiling. Everywhere Daniel looked, there were young Draconari. Some were barely hatched, no bigger than house cats, tumbling over each other as they played. Others were older, the size of large dogs, practicing small bursts of flame under the watchful eyes of adult caretakers. Daniel's heart swelled with wonder. The babies were beautiful, all bright scales and oversized wings and big, curious eyes. They chirped and squeaked and made sounds that were almost like laughter. But then he saw something that made him stop dead in a far corner of the chamber. Away from the warmth and the light, a single hatchling sat alone. It was small, smaller than the others its age. Its scales were pale, almost white, and it shivered even in the warm air. No caretaker attended it. No other hatchlings played with it. It simply sat there, alone and forgotten. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. "What about that one?" he asked, pointing toward the corner. Vexan's expression darkened. "That is nothing for you to concern yourself with. But it looks sick. It looks cold. Why isn't anyone helping it?" Ambassador Kirith turned to look at Daniel. There was something strange in his ancient eyes, something that might have been sadness or shame or both. "That hatchling is void-touched," Kirith said. "It was born without fire, without the flame that burns in every Draconari heart. To us, such a creature is cursed. It brings misfortune to all who touch it." Daniel stared at the tiny dragon. As if sensing his attention, the hatchling looked up. Its eyes were large and golden, and they held an intelligence that seemed far beyond its age. It made a small sound, a soft, pleading chirp that cut through Daniel like a knife. "What happens to it?" Daniel asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "We do not harm the void-touched," Kira said, "but we do not help them either. They are given no food, no warmth, no care. In time, they fade away. It is the natural order. It is our way." Daniel wanted to argue. He wanted to shout that this was cruel, that this was wrong. But Captain Bennett caught his eye and gave a small shake of her head. They were guests here. They had to follow the rules. The tour continued, but Daniel heard nothing more. His mind was filled with the image of that pale little dragon, sitting alone in the cold corner, waiting to die. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, and all he could see were those golden eyes looking up at him, asking a question he could not answer. Not yet. Daniel woke before the sun rose. He had barely slept, and when he did, he dreamed of golden eyes in the darkness. He dressed quickly and quietly, not wanting to wake the others. Then he slipped out of the human quarters and walked through the silent streets of the Draconari city. He did not know exactly where he was going, but his feet seemed to know the way. They carried him toward the white stone building that glowed softly in the early morning light. The nesting sanctuary. 2 guards stood at the entrance. They looked down at Daniel with expressions of mild confusion. "The sanctuary is not open to visitors at this hour," one of them said. "I know," Daniel replied. I wanted to see it again. From outside." "Is that allowed?" The guards exchanged glances. Humans were strange creatures, their expressions seemed to say, but there was no rule against standing outside. "You may wait here," the guard said, "but you may not enter." Daniel nodded and stood where they indicated. He did not try to go inside. He simply waited, watching the sanctuary, thinking about the pale hatchling inside. An hour passed. Then another. The sun rose higher, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And then, just as Daniel was about to give up and return to the human quarters, a familiar voice spoke behind him. "You should not be here." Daniel turned to find Vexan watching him. The green-scale guardian's expression was impossible to read. "I'm not doing anything wrong," Daniel said. "I'm just standing here." "You are thinking about the void-touched." It was not a question. Daniel saw no point in lying. Yes, Vexan was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He walked past the guards and gestured for Daniel to follow. "Come, you wish to understand." I will help you understand." They entered the sanctuary together. It was quiet at this early hour, with only a few caretakers moving about. Vexan led Daniel to a far section of the building, to a chamber that Daniel had not seen during the tour. And there, in the corner, was the pale HATCLING dot. It looked worse than before. Its breathing was shallow, and its small body trembled constantly. But when it saw Daniel, its golden eyes lit up. It made that same soft chirping sound, as if greeting an old friend. Daniel felt his heart break. "The Voidtouched are not killed," Vexan said quietly. "We are not monsters, but we believe they carry bad luck. To touch one is to invite misfortune into your life. To care for one is to doom yourself and your family." "That's just superstition," Daniel said. "You can't possibly believe." "I believe what my people have believed for 10,000 years, Vexan interrupted. "I believe what I was taught from the moment I hatched. Can you say the same about your human beliefs? Can you be certain that what you call superstition is not simply wisdom you do not yet understand?" Daniel had no answer for that. "This hatchling will be dead within 2 days, Vexan continued. His voice was flat, but Daniel thought he saw something flicker in the Guardian's eyes. "Perhaps less. It is too weak now. The end will come soon." Daniel knelt down, bringing himself closer to the tiny dragon's level. It looked at him with such hope, such trust. It did not understand why no one would help it. It only knew that it was cold and hungry and alone. "What if I took it?" Daniel asked quietly. Vexan made a sharp sound of surprise. "You cannot be serious. What if I did? I'm not Drakenari. Your customs don't apply to me. You are wrong." Vexan's voice was hard now. "If you touch that creature, you will be marked. Every Drakenari in the galaxy will know what you have done. No Drakenari will ever speak to you again. No Drakenari world will ever welcome you. Your entire career studying our species will be over." Daniel felt those words land like heavy stones. His career, everything he had worked for. 10 years of study, of dreaming, of hoping, all gone in one moment. "And that's not all," Vexan continued. "Your actions could damage the relationship between humans and Drakenari. The trade agreements, the cultural exchanges, everything your captain has worked to build. Are you willing to destroy all of that for one worthless hatchling?" Daniel closed his eyes. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He thought of Captain Bennett, who had trusted him. He thought of the diplomatic mission and all the good it could do. He thought of logic and reason and all the sensible arguments for walking away. Then he opened his eyes and looked at the HATCHLING dot. It had crawled closer to him. Its small head rested against his knee, seeking whatever warmth it could find. A soft hum came from its throat, a sound of contentment despite everything. "I need to think," Daniel said. He stood up and walked out of the sanctuary without looking back. He spent the rest of the day in a daze, going through the motions of the diplomatic meetings without really hearing anything. That night, he lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, fighting a war inside his own mind. By morning, he had made his decision. He went to Captain Bennett first. He told her everything, what he had seen, what he was planning to do, what it would cost. Her face went pale. "Daniel, I am ordering you not to do this." "I know," he said. "I'm sorry. You'll ruin everything. Your career, the mission. Don't you understand?" "I understand," Daniel said. "But I can't walk away. I've tried. I can't." He left before she could say anything more. He walked to the sanctuary in the bright morning light, past the guards who watched him with growing confusion. He walked into the chamber where the void-touched hatchling lay dying in its corner. The caretakers saw him and froze. Vexan was there too, standing off to the side, his expression unreadable. Daniel walked to the corner. He knelt down. The hatchling looked up at him with those golden eyes, so full of hope and fear, and something that looked almost like love. "It's okay," Daniel whispered. "I've got you." He reached out and gently picked up the tiny dragon. It weighed almost nothing. It was cold and thin and trembling. But when Daniel held it against his chest, it made a sound he had never heard before, a soft, musical hum that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. Every Draconari in the chamber was staring at him. The silence was absolute. Then Ambassador Kirith appeared in the doorway. His ancient eyes took in the scene, the human holding the cursed hatchling, the shocked caretakers, the broken law that could never be unbroken. Kirith walked slowly toward Daniel. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. When he stopped, his face was like carved stone. "You have chosen your path, human," Kirith said. "There is no returning from it." Daniel held the hatchling closer. He could feel its small heart beating against his own. "I know," he said, "and I'm not turning back." The journey back to human space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of cold silence from the Draconari. 3 weeks of worried looks from his crewmates. 3 weeks of Captain Bennett barely speaking to him except to say what was necessary, but also 3 weeks of watching the little hatchling grow stronger every day. Daniel had named him Ash. It seemed fitting, a name connected to fire, even for a dragon who was supposed to have none. In those first days aboard the ship, Ash was so weak that Daniel feared he would not survive. The hatchling refused to eat, could barely lift his head, and spent most of his time sleeping. Daniel stayed by his side constantly. He built a special heated chamber in his quarters using spare equipment from the ship. He researched Draconari biology and created a special food mixture that Ash could digest. He talked to the hatchling, sang to him, held him close during the long nights when Ash whimpered in his sleep. Slowly, day by day, Ash began to improve. His pale scales took on a slightly silver shine. His golden eyes grew brighter and more alert. He started eating on his own, then walking, then making small hops that were almost like jumps. And every time Daniel entered the room, Ash would make that soft humming sound, a song of pure joy and recognition. The other crew members were cautious at first. They had heard about the Draconari curse, and even though most humans did not believe in such things, the word curse had a way of making people nervous. But it was hard to stay nervous around Ash. He was simply too adorable. With his oversized wings and clumsy movements and the way he tilted his head when he was curious about something. Dr. Nicole Grant was the first to warm up to him. She was the ship's medical officer, and she had volunteered to help Daniel monitor Ash's health. "He's remarkable," she said one day, studying the readings from her scanner. "His vital signs are completely stable. Whatever was wrong with him before, it's gone now. He just needed someone to care for him." "The Draconari said he was born without fire," Daniel said. "That he was cursed." Nicole frowned at the scanner. "That's strange. These readings show unusual energy patterns in his chest. It's not exactly like what we've seen in other Draconari, but it's definitely something. He's not empty inside. He's just different." Daniel looked at Ash, who was chasing his own tail in the corner of the room. Different, not cursed. Just different. As the days passed, more crew members started visiting Daniel's quarters to see the little dragon. Ash loved the attention. He would perform his clumsy jumps and flap his wings and make happy chirping sounds whenever someone new arrived. Even Captain Bennett softened eventually, though she still looked at Daniel with a mixture of frustration and something that might have been respect. "You've destroyed your career. You know," she said one evening, watching Ash play with a piece of rope. "No Draconari will ever work with you again. Every research institution that deals with them will shut their doors to you." "I know," Daniel said. "Was it worth it?" Daniel watched Ash finally catch the rope and parade around the room with it proudly. like he had just won a great battle. Ask me that question again in 10 years, but the peaceful days could not last forever. They were 2 days away from the nearest human station when Nicole burst into Daniel's quarters with wide eyes and a trembling voice. "Daniel, you need to see this. Right now." She led him to the medical bay, where she had been running more tests on Ash. The hatchling was sitting calmly on an examination table, looking around with his usual curiosity. "Watch this," Nicole said. She dimmed the lights in the room until it was almost completely dark. Then she held up a small piece of frozen meat, Ash's favorite treat. The hatchling's eyes locked onto the food. His body tensed with excitement. And then, without any warning, his mouth opened and a stream of flame burst out. But it was not orange flame. It was not red or yellow, or any color that fire was supposed to be dot. It was blue. Cold, bright blue, like frozen lightning or starlight captured in physical form. The flame did not burn the meat. Instead, it seemed to pass through it, leaving behind a soft glow that faded after a few seconds. Daniel stared in shock. "That's impossible." The Draconari said. "The Draconari were wrong," Nicole said. Her voice was shaking with excitement. "He's not flameless. His fire is just different. I've been analyzing the energy readings, and this is something completely new. It's not hot, it's cold. Cold fire. I've never seen anything like it in any species." Daniel knelt down to look at Ash. The hatchling seemed pleased with himself, making happy sounds as if he knew he had done something special. "What does it mean?" Daniel asked. "I don't know yet," Nicole admitted. "But it means the Draconari have been abandoning hatchlings like Ash for thousands of years, thinking they were worthless, thinking they were cursed, when really they might be something rare and precious." The news spread quickly through the ship. Everyone wanted to see Ash's blue flame. And when they arrived at the human station, reports were sent back to Earth about the discovery. Scientists were fascinated. News organizations picked up the story. Within days, the whole galaxy knew about Daniel Cole and the dragon baby he had saved. But not everyone was happy about it. 1 week after arriving at the station, Daniel was called to the command center. Captain Bennett was there, her face grim. On the main screen was a sensor display showing a ship approaching at high speed. "Draconari vessel," Bennett said. "They've been following us. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel and are requesting immediate communication." Daniel felt his stomach drop. "What do they want?" "I think you know what they want." The screen flickered, and suddenly Daniel was looking at a Draconari face. But this was not Ambassador Kirith. This was a larger dragon, with scales of deep red and eyes that burned with cold anger. "I am War Elder Tharos," the dragon said. "You have something that belongs to us. The corrupted hatchling. You will surrender it immediately, so that it can be disposed of properly. This is not a request." Daniel stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "His name is Ash," he said, "and he's not going anywhere." War Elder Tharos was even more terrifying in person. He stood in the docking bay of the human station, surrounded by 6 Draconari warriors, each one armed with weapons that could cut through steel like paper. His red scales seemed to glow with inner heat, and when he breathed, smoke curled from his nostrils in thick, angry clouds. Captain Bennett stood at Daniel's side, along with a dozen human security officers. They were outmatched, and everyone knew it. If the Draconari wanted to take Ash by force, there was little the humans could do to stop them. But Tharos had agreed to talk first. That was something. "You have insulted our entire civilization," Tharos said, his voice like grinding stones. "You have taken what is ours and shown it to the galaxy like some kind of trophy. You have made us look foolish." "I saved a life," Daniel replied. He was surprised by how steady his own voice sounded. Your people were going to let an innocent creature die for no reason except old superstition. Tharos took a step forward. The human security officers raised their weapons, but the war elder ignored them completely. His burning eyes were fixed on Daniel alone. "You understand nothing," Tharos said. "The Void-Touched are cursed. They have always been cursed. Our ancestors knew this truth 10,000 years ago, and nothing has changed. By taking that creature, you have brought its curse upon yourself and everyone around you." "There is no curse," Daniel said. "Ash is healthy. He's thriving. And he has fire, just not the kind you expected." Tharos made a sound of disgust. "We have heard your lies. Cold fire, blue flame. Impossible nonsense created to justify your theft. It's not a lie. I can show you." The words were out before Daniel could think about them. Everyone in the room fell silent. Even Tharos seemed surprised. "Bring the creature here," Tharos said finally. "Show me this supposed miracle." Daniel looked at Captain Bennett. She nodded slowly, though her eyes were full of worry. Daniel activated his communication device and spoke quietly into it. A few minutes later, Dr. Nicole Grant entered the docking bay. Carrying Ash in her arms, the hatchling had grown since leaving Virathos. He was now the size of a large dog, with wings that could spread nearly 2 meters wide. His pale silver scales caught the light beautifully, and his golden eyes scanned the room with sharp intelligence. When Ash saw the Draconari, he made a low sound in his throat, not fear, exactly, but caution. He remembered what his own kind had done to him, how they had left him to die in a cold corner while everyone looked away. "So this is the Void-Touched," Tharos said. He moved closer, examining Ash with obvious contempt. "It looks wrong. Its scales are pale. Its eyes are too bright. Everything about it is unnatural." "He's not unnatural," Daniel said, taking Ash from Nicole and holding him protectively. "He's just different. Watch." Daniel pulled a small piece of frozen meat from his pocket. He always carried treats for Ash now. He held it up, and Ash's attention immediately focused on it. The hatchling's body tensed, his mouth opened, and blue flame poured out. The cold fire washed over the room. It did not burn, did not destroy. Instead, it illuminated. Every corner of the docking bay was suddenly filled with soft blue-white light. And in that light, something strange happened. The Draconari warriors gasped. Even Tharos stepped back, his eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," Tharos whispered. Daniel looked around, trying to understand what was happening. The blue flame was still flowing from Ash's mouth, filling the room with gentle light. And in that light, Daniel could see things that had been invisible before. Patterns on the walls that had been hidden. Scratches and marks that told stories of past events. It was as if the flame was revealing truth itself. "The Void Fire," one of the warriors said, his voice trembling. "The legends. They were true." Tharos spun around to face his warrior. "What did you say?" "The old stories, War Elder, from before the Great Burning. They spoke of dragons who could breathe cold flame fire that did not destroy, but revealed. Fire that could show what was hidden and heal what was broken. They called it Void Fire, but we thought it was just a myth." Tharos turned back to look at Ash. The contempt in his eyes had been replaced by something else: confusion, disbelief, and perhaps a little fear. "This cannot be," Tharos said. "The Void-Touched are cursed. They have always been cursed." "Maybe they were never cursed," Daniel said quietly. "Maybe your ancestors just didn't understand what they were seeing. Maybe every Void-Touched hatchling you've abandoned over the past 10,000 years was actually carrying something precious. Something you lost." Ash finished his display of flame and settled contentedly in Daniel's arms. He looked up at Tharos without fear, his golden eyes calm and knowing. Tharos stared at the hatchling for a long, silent moment. Then he turned away abruptly. "I must consult with my people," he said. His voice had lost its certainty. "This changes things. I need to speak with the Council of Elders." "With Ambassador Kirith and Ash?" Daniel asked. Tharos paused at the doorway. When he looked back, his expression was impossible to read. "Keep the creature for now," he said. "But this is not over, human. We will speak again." The Draconari departed as quickly as they had arrived. Their ship jumped to faster than light speed and vanished into the darkness between stars, carrying news that would shake their civilization to its core. 3 days later, a message arrived from Virathos. Ambassador Kirith himself had sent it. The message was short, but its meaning was clear. "Daniel Cole, you are invited to return to Virathos with the Void Touched. The Council of Elders wishes to see the cold fire with their own eyes. You will be given safe passage and the protection of my personal guard. We have much to discuss." Daniel read the message twice, then looked down at Ash, who was sleeping peacefully in his lap. "Looks like we're going back," he said softly. "But this time, things are going to be different." Ash opened one golden eye, made a soft humming sound, and went back to sleep. Virathos had not changed. The mountains still touched the purple sky. The silver rivers still flowed through valleys of strange beauty. Dragons still soared through the air on powerful wings, their scales glittering in the golden sunlight. But Daniel was not the same person who had left this world months ago. And neither was the creature who stood beside him. Ash had grown. He was now the size of a small horse, with wings that could carry him short distances through the air. His silver scales had developed patterns of soft blue that seemed to glow faintly in certain light. When he walked, there was a quiet dignity in his movements that had not been there before. He was no longer a frightened, dying hatchling. He was becoming something magnificent. The Draconari, who gathered to watch them land, stared with open amazement. Many of them had never seen a Voidtouch before, and certainly not one who looked so healthy, so strong, so alive. Ambassador Kirith met them at the landing platform. The ancient dragon looked older than Daniel remembered, as if the past months had weighed heavily on him. But there was something else in his orange eyes now, something that might have been hope. "Daniel Cole," Kirith said, "welcome back to Virathos. And welcome to you as well, young one." These last words were directed at Ash. The hatchling looked up at the towering ambassador without fear. He made a soft sound, not quite a greeting, but an acknowledgement. "The council awaits," Kirith said. "They are eager to witness the void fire for themselves. Many do not believe it is real. They think it is some kind of human trick." "It's no trick," Daniel said. "Ash will show them the truth." They walked through the city together, a human, a silver dragon, and an ancient ambassador, while thousands of Draconari watched from buildings and streets and rooftops. The whispers followed them everywhere. Daniel heard fragments of conversation. The human who touched the Cursed One. "Look at the Void-Touched, how big it has grown. Can the old legends really be true?" The council chamber was enormous, carved from a single piece of black stone that seemed to absorb light. 12 Draconari elders sat in a semicircle, each one ancient beyond measure. Their scales faded to pale versions of their original colors. At the center of the semicircle sat the High Elder, a dragon so old that his scales had turned almost completely white. War Elder Tharos was there too, standing to the side. His expression was carefully neutral, but Daniel could sense the tension in his body. Whatever happened here today, Tharos's pride was at stake. He had called the void fire impossible. He had demanded Ash's destruction. If the legends proved true, he would be shamed before the entire council. "Daniel Cole," the High Elder said. His voice was thin, but still carried authority. "You have brought chaos to our world. You have broken laws that have stood for 10,000 years. You have challenged beliefs that define who we are. "I saved a life," Daniel replied simply. "That's all I did." "Perhaps. But actions have consequences, human. If the void touch you carry is truly blessed with the ancient fire, then we have been committing a terrible crime for millennia. We have been abandoning our own children based on a lie. Do you understand what that means for us? For our history? For our identity?" Daniel looked at the old dragon with compassion. He understood, perhaps better than most humans would, what it meant for an entire civilization to confront the possibility that they had been wrong about something so fundamental. "I understand," Daniel said. "But the truth doesn't change based on whether it's convenient. Ash exists. His fire exists. You can choose to accept that, or you can deny it. But either way, the truth remains." The High Elder studied Daniel for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Show us." Daniel knelt beside Ash and looked into those golden eyes that he had come to know so well over the past months. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Ash made his humming sound and pressed his head briefly against Daniel's shoulder. Then he stepped forward into the center of the chamber and faced the Council of Elders. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber was silent, every eye fixed on the silver dragon. Then Ash opened his mouth, and the world changed. Blue fire poured out, not in a stream, but in a wave that filled the entire chamber. It washed over the elders, over the walls, over the ceiling carved with ancient symbols. And everywhere the cold flame touched, hidden things were revealed. Ancient writing appeared on the walls, words that had been invisible for thousands of years. The elders gasped as they read the forgotten texts, prophecies, and histories that spoke of dragons with cold fire, of the void fire that would one day return to save their people from a great darkness. But more than that, the flames seemed to touch the hearts of those it passed over. Daniel saw tears on the faces of elders who had probably not cried in centuries. He saw War Elder Tharos fall to his knees, his expression crumbling as the cold fire revealed truths he had denied for so long. When the flame finally faded, the chamber was filled with soft weeping. The High Elder rose slowly from his seat. He walked toward Ash with unsteady steps, then lowered himself to the ground until his ancient face was level with the young dragon's. "Forgive us," the High Elder said. His voice broke on the words. "Forgive us for what we have done. Forgive us for what we failed to see." Ash stepped forward and pressed his forehead gently against the High Elder's. A soft hum filled the chamber, a sound of acceptance, of forgiveness, of healing thought in the months that followed. Everything changed. The council declared that void-touched hatchlings were no longer to be abandoned. Teams were sent to search ancient records, looking for any void-touched who might have survived through luck or hidden kindness. New laws were written. Old traditions were questioned. And Daniel stayed. The Draconari offered him a position as a cultural liaison, the first human ever granted such an honor. He would serve as a bridge between his species and theirs, helping to heal the wounds that his actions had accidentally caused, and the deeper wounds that had existed for far longer. He built a home on Virathos, a small structure at the edge of a cliff that overlooked the nesting sanctuary. Ash lived with him, though the dragon was now so large that he barely fit through the door. Other Draconari began to visit, especially younger ones who were curious about the human who had changed their world. One morning, about a year after his return, Daniel stood on the cliff watching the sunrise. Ash lay beside him, his massive head resting near Daniel's feet. In the sanctuary below, hatchlings were playing, including 3 pale-scaled little ones who would have been left to die just a year ago. Now they tumbled and chirped and played with the others, no different, no lesser, no cursed. A small sound made Daniel turn. A tiny dragon was climbing up the path toward him, a newly hatched void-touched with scales of purest white and eyes of bright gold. It was too young to be out here alone, but somehow it had found its way to Daniel's door. The hatchling looked up at him and made a soft, pleading sound that Daniel remembered all too well. He smiled and knelt down. Gently, carefully, he picked up the tiny creature and held it against his chest. Ash raised his great head and looked at Daniel with those wise golden eyes. A soft hum filled the air, a sound of approval, of continuation, of love that crossed the boundaries between species. Daniel held the new hatchling close and felt its small heart beating against his own. Some choices define who you are, and he had never once looked back.